The night my husband died, a shared death experience. I was taken by two angels to a place beyond this world, and it was indescribable in its beauty. I have never felt more loved in my entire life. I'm going to share with you three things that I learned from that night. Number one is that the reality of the afterlife is for real. The second thing I learned is that the power of love, it never dies, it only multiplies. And the third thing I'm going to share is connecting with your passed away loved ones and how you can do it too. Hi, I'm Lisa Jones, and I had a shared death experience on February 22nd, 2004, the night that my first husband, Ian Sharp, passed away. It absolutely transcended my life. It opened me up to an awakening, and I've never been the same. And I'm so grateful. Even though I lost him in death, I gained him as my heavenly husband. And I want to share, again, how you can do this with your passed away loved ones as well. First, let me talk about the reality of the afterlife. So my experience was that my husband was sick for 7 years. And on his final night, which was unexpected, if you can imagine that, but the hospice people had arrived and said it looked like he wasn't going to die for another 2 or 3 weeks, if not longer. And I was beside myself. It was the first day he had woken up incoherent and unable to stand up and take care of himself. And so it was rather a sudden experience. His brother and best friend arrived. My children went to their grandmother's that evening, so they were not there the night that he passed away. I had been up for about 24 hours before I was able to finally kiss Ian goodnight and go to my daughter's room and get some sleep. And that night I prayed to the angels. I said, please help us. There's no way out of this now. Please help us with this transition. And I fell asleep. The next thing I know, I was escorted out of my body. My soul was escorted by two angels to the most glorious place that I have ever experienced. Nothing like this on planet Earth exists. First of all, I felt the unconditional love of being in heaven and feeling just completely at home and so peaceful and so deeply loved to the core of my being. I was taken, I saw these rolling beautiful hills, these meadows, and the next thing I know, I was taken into this castle-like structure. For lack of a better word, there's no words I can describe to explain the beauty of this building and the amount of gold and silver and jewels, and the extraordinary beauty is just palpable when you're there. And not only that, but there were choirs singing, there were trumpets going, and there was an announcement as I entered this building that said, the Grand Mr. Ian Sharp is about to arrive. And the angels took me to this edge of a balcony, and I looked down below and I could see Ian's soul family. I didn't recognize any of them, and I can't exactly describe what they looked like, but they looked like light beings. They didn't have angel wings or anything like that, but they were, I could just tell, they were just Ian's soul family, and they were just so loving and so excited. You could feel their energy. They were saying to one another, oh my gosh, Ian's coming, it's so exciting. And so just as they were all gathered together, there was a loud, it was almost like a giant door that started to open, and it kind of made this big noise scraping on the ground, and it was opening, and everyone turned, oh, he's here, he's here. And right at that moment, Ian just started to take a step through the door. And I was so excited. I did not want to leave. But at that moment, there was a knock on my door. Knock, knock, knock. Lisa, wake up, wake up. Ian just took his last breath. And this was my brother-in-law, who had just woken me to tell me that Ian had transitioned out of his physical body. Well, at that moment, it was as though a trap door opened up and I fell back into my body. I can still remember the thud of my soul landing back into my body. And I jumped out of my bed, and I just was so excited. I was so, it was like I was so happy. And yet in that moment, my mind was saying, no, this is not appropriate. You can't be feeling this way. Your husband just died. So it was a real clash of belief systems, of experiencing that I was having in that moment. I ran down to my bedroom where my husband had been sleeping and where he had passed away. And as soon as I entered the room, I saw his body on the bed, and I could tell that his soul was not there, that it looked as though it was a shell. It wasn't him, it wasn't his essence, it was just his physical body. And again, I just was so relieved to know that he was in this next realm. So then the next thing that happened that morning, there's so many more things to say, but the one I want to relate about the power of love and how love doesn't die, it only multiplies. And so I was getting ready to have to go tell my children, and they, as I had said, had not spent the night with us that night. They had gone. Actually, my son went to Ian's mother's house, and my daughter went to her best friend's house. And so I had to go gather them and let them know that their father had passed away, which was the most difficult experience of the entire time that my husband was sick for 7 years, was to tell his children that my children, that he had passed away. And so as I was getting ready, it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was blow drying my hair. All of a sudden, Ian's voice was right at my ear on the left side. And he said, "Oh my God, Lisa, I love you so much, but it's so awesome here." And in that moment, it freaked me out. I'd not heard a voice like that before, but it was certainly his voice. It was as though I could almost feel his breath on my neck. And I just knew right then and there that love never dies, it only multiplies. And he has been with me ever since. He's guided me and given me so many opportunities and introduced me to so many people, including my second husband, which actually we are no longer together, but we had the most amazing 14 years together, and I'm so grateful for that. And so I will be telling and sharing more of those stories. But the whole idea that the power of love continues, which leads me to my third point, which is connecting with passed away loved ones, and how I want to share how you can do it too. So I started by reading a book called Angel Speak, and it really opened my eyes to how to connect with your angels. And so from that, reading that book and then all of my experience, I created the PALS method, which is prepare, ask, listen, and say thank you. You always have to say thank you to your angels or your passed away loved ones so that they can get that energy of reciprocation. And so the way to do it is you prepare by being in a quiet place and having a pad of paper. It's an automatic handwriting technique. So that's the prepare. And then you ask at the top of your paper, "Dear angel, what would you like me to know?" Or "My dear passed away loved one, what would you like me to know?" And then, let's see, PAL, listen. And this is the hard part, because you're going to think that you're making it up yourself, but it's really discerning whether it's you or whether it's spirit that's talking to you. And so that's going to take a little time. You just have to trust yourself and to know when it feels like it's a different, I like to call it a vibrational tone, than your own self. And if you get anything negative, it's definitely not spirit. It's always going to be loving and kind and generally very simple, like "I love you," or "You are loved," or "Have more joy," or anything that's very simple. But over time, if you keep practicing, you're going to get better and better results. And so that is, and then the final one is S for say thank you. And be sure to say thank you to your spirit guides, your angels, to your passed away loved ones, because again, it takes them a lot of energy to be able to transmute through this dense energy field that we live here on planet Earth. So I hope that you've enjoyed these different techniques, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you in the future. Aloha.